you so much. Was it Sam and Talia?
Talia.
Talia. Thank you. Talia. Thank you for coming. I'm so grateful to be here. I've never been here before, so everything looks new to me, and that's always exciting and fun. I want to thank Alan, Bering, and Kamran for entertaining me today, and for bringing me out, and the Vanderbilt Lit Fest, and also that large number of sponsors you mentioned. I only caught the English department, so thank you to everyone who has or had a hand in putting something like this together. I'm going to read. So I'm working a lot with visual art, so I like to show things too, because I tend to be visual. So I'll be showing you some things, and then in between, sort of reading some poems to you, if that's okay with you. So I'm going to start by just reading a few poems from my book Obit, and so these are just poems that they explore, well, they maybe converse with grief. And my mother passed away from pulmonary fibrosis, and it's a pretty terrible disease where your lungs, for no reason, oftentimes just harden, and you suffocate to death. So it's not pleasant. And these poems are shaped in obituaries. Can everyone hear me okay? I have to lean in a little bit, so I'm gonna slouch. My mother's teeth died twice. Once in 1965, all pulled out from gum disease. Once again on August 3rd, 2015. The fake teeth sit in a box in the garage. When she died, I touched them, smelled them, thought I heard a whimper. I shoved the teeth into my mouth, but having two sets of teeth only made me hungrier. When my mother died, I saw myself in the mirror, her words around my mouth like powder from a donut. Her last words were in English. She asked for a Sprite. I wonder whether her last thought was in Chinese. I wonder what her last thought was. I used to think that a dead person's words die with them. Now I know that they scatter, looking for meaning to attach to, like a scent. My mother used to collect orange blossoms in a small, shallow bowl. I passed the tree each spring. I always knew that grief was something I could smell, but I didn't know that it's not actually a noun, but a verb, that it moves. This one's called Bees. The bees, 268 million years old, from the Philippines, passed away on April 26, 2217 in Nome, Alaska. The detaching icebergs crushed the bees, who used to fly over conference rooms. Once I nearly died in a small plane with a CEO, CFO, and COO during their IPO. On the ground, the CEO glared at me as if I had caused the storm, as if the yellow lights had come from my mind, as if the buzzing had come from my shaking, as if the lightning were a box I had tripped over. Maybe he was right. Maybe I had become estranged from a part of myself that wanted to stay alive, that wanted them to remain alive. In the same way, I had become estranged from my mother forever, but not from her death. I'm going to read some short poems that are they're all in syllabic form. So after I wrote Obit and that other book, Dear Memory, I really just wanted to count syllables and not think so much about. I wanted sort of the language to go first. So the only way I was thinking I could do that at that time was to write in various syllabic counts. And these are just very tiny poems. So I'll just read a few. This one's called To Age. Oh, I also wanted to give myself one additional constraint. And so I used the titles of W.S. Merwin as my own titles. And you'll see, well, I don't know if you'll see why, but the titles are really open. And this one's called To Age. When the stars hit the windows now, they turn into flies. Who knew they would come down? Fly. What happened to the eagle that lost its wing and lived in the small cage, feral like silence? We stood there with our futures, filming with our phones. I wonder if the bird felt me replay it on the plane. Calling late. The men used to call at all hours, but what I miss most are the late night talks, one where I held the phone so close it pressed like a gun. Little soul. I rode on your back until your knees broke, and now 1 mile left, I must toss you. When the war is over. I once saw the deer. They were all wearing blue scarves. We have finally finished killing everything. We are now looking ahead, but have killed past the future. Turning. My mother is dead. The lemons still turn yellow. The trout still stare emptily. Desire is still free. We still love many people. Eat peaches as if kissing. The lovers. There's a wildfire starving on top of a lake. See how the water holds fire, but cannot end it? We insist on love when all we want is mercy. The gods. The fact that leaves can't be put back on trees makes me think that you do not exist. Okay, let me check my time. Okay, we're doing okay. So I'm gonna shift again to these slides, which I'm really excited to show you. As I was talking about in this class today that I visited and got a bunch of great questions from all of you, this book started from a commission from the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And I decided to pick Agnes Martin, the visual artist and writer, who works a lot with grids, because I didn't understand her art. And so I thought maybe it's something I should just write about. So the Atlanta spa shooting had also occurred while I was writing this poem. And the picture or the piece I chose is called On a Clear Day, 1973. I'll explain this thing in a second, but so this was the one I picked, which might not seem that exciting to you, but look at how many she made. And them, I think altogether, it just felt very electric to me. And so I decided to pick the prior one to write a poem on. And this is the poem I'll read. It's called On a Clear Day, 1973. On a clear day, the horses disappeared. Just the apples they had been fed were left. The apples were strewn across the field and had become rectangles. When people found them, they still gathered and ate them. The people who hunched over their apples were far away, but the sounds of their chewing were over here. On a clear day, all the sounds fit into the boxes. On any clear day, all my thinking fits into boxes that can't be opened. What if our thinking was never meant to come out? If it only remains thinking within boxes, when out it becomes weapons, takes on different shapes with sharp points. Today, there's no shortage of thinking, but all the thinking is divided into portions. Today, I'm hungry, but all the portions are gone. There are only 48. On clear days, there are only 48 birds, 48 people, and 48 houses, and 48 wars, and 48 apples. I keep counting grids, but no matter how I try, I still get 6 dead Asian women who don't fit into 48 boxes. All night, my thoughts are shaped like birds. In the morning, I lean in closer to the mirror, and someone has drawn lines across my face. I realize that failure consists of both the outline and the outlined, that lines are not meant to hold in our emptiness. This one is called With My Back to the World, 1997. And this is a really cool one. This is one she made when she was a little bit older. And she was naming a lot of her pieces things like happiness and things like that. So, yeah, I kind of borrowed the name of her painting for my book title. And she was painting more with color. She had moved away from the grids. And like this one, she actually painted the other way. So she painted it vertically. So I just wrote a poem called With My Back to the World, 1997. This year, I turned my back to the world. I let language face the front. The parting felt like a death. The first person ran away like a horse. When the first person left, there was no second or third person as I had originally thought. All that remained was repetition and blue things. This year, I stopped shaking the rain off of umbrellas and nothing bad happened. The terror of this year was emptiness, but I learned that it's possible for a sentence to have no words, that the meaning of a word can exist without the word, that life can still occur without a mind, that emptiness still swarms without the world, that it can be disconnected from the wall and still light up. The best thing about emptiness is if you close your eyes in a field, you'll open your eyes in a field. So I think I was just really sad, and she just, I don't know, thinking a lot about her work and her relationship to spirituality and emptiness and things like that. So really, I think I wrote the poems. I wouldn't have been able to write the poems that I did if I weren't in conversation with her writings, her mindset, and also her art pieces. I'm not going to read this one, but I just wanted to show it to you if you can kind of see it. It's hard to see, but the middle are a bunch of red lines, and I love this piece because it shows it's really about process. And how I think about my own writing is more about process versus outcome. And you can see her little like pencil marks on both sides, and I just love. There's just something about that I love. Because you look at her pieces and you might think, oh, this is not that interesting, but I think for her it was about counting, recounting, miscounting, measuring, and drawing the lines. But this one is called Red Bird, 1964, and I wrote a poem, but I'm not going to read it. And in the middle of this book is, as some of you from the class today know, is this longer poem by this abstract artist named An Kawara. And I just love his work. It's so interesting. He did these date paintings from 1966 to 2013, which was almost 50 years. And he made thousands of these monochromatic canvases in red, blue, or gray with a date painted in white. And the cool thing was, as you can see, language was in the convention of the country that he was in. Which always makes me jealous because I think he traveled a lot. And the cool thing, well, the interesting thing about this is that if he painted them all by hand, and if he didn't finish them by midnight, he would burn them. And when he died, instead of saying he died in 2014 and the usual date kind of thing, he wanted his obituary to say that he lived for 29,771 days, which I just think is so cool. Like, go figure out how many days you've been alive. It's humbling and also changes, I don't know, for me it changed the frame of how I think about life and death. When my father was in hospice during his last days, as I said in the class today, I was inspired by An Kawara and his thinking about time and mortality. And so I just started writing a couple lines every day. And my father, I thought, was going to pass in like 2 days, but he's a Chang. And so he lasted for like 3 weeks. And so here, just a few. I'll just read a few because I want to pay attention to my time. January 9th, 2022. Someone says your eyelid almost came off. The doctors tried to reattach it. I close my eye all day to see if I can feel you're dying. What is dying but a form of hunger visible to God? When we pull down your shirt, your good eye opens. All the waiting, the moon is an athlete. January 15th, 2022. Maybe we feel dizzy because we are moving, and so is the earth. On some days, I can tell the earth is rotating in another direction. Today, I meet a hospice nurse named Harsh. He is sweet, sweet. And I always tell people I added that last sweet because I had to, because it had to be 10 syllables, but I like that ring of that second sweet. January 16th, 2022. They drop the morphine under your tongue, how it must feel like a faint raindrop taken from the sky. It's been 2 weeks since the fall, and death still catches me by surprise. I feel nothing. It is raining morphine. These are so sad. I'm just gonna skip. I'll just read two more from this section. February 15th, 2022. The caskets are shaking. The white-tailed deer gently cross the river. I hike up the hill to find my feelings. Instead, I run into Hope, who doesn't look at me or stop, but walks down the hill. Today could be a day where everything is beautiful. February 17th, 2022. Each of us comes from somewhere with blossoms. Encore also did something really, I don't know, it's interesting. He cut out the newspapers of where he was on the day that he painted, and he just stored them in a box below. And I don't think they're meant to be shown together, but sometimes people show them together. Oh, and he also did this really cool thing. I wish I were friends with him because I would get these really interesting postcards, and this is all he wrote. Things like, I got up at 10:47 a.m. But there are a whole bunch of these around the world. If you just go to a museum, you might bump into one. I would have loved to get one of these. I'll read this poem from With My Back to the World, and then I'll just read two more newer poems. This is my favorite piece. Has anyone seen this one? Oh, it's so pretty. So it's one of 3 pieces that Agnes Martin made with gold leaf. And if anyone's worked with gold leaf, it's super soft and delicate and really hard to work with. The thing I love about art is that it's not just about what's in the thing itself, but for me, the reason why I love her work so much now is that it's all about scale. So, actually, let me show you the scale. It's not moving. Now let's see. Are we stuck?
There it is.
Oh, so these are, okay, hold on. Let me get to my scale. I just want to show you how big it is. I don't know. I think it matters for me. It really does. And to overkill it, that's how big it is. And then going back a little bit, these are also some pieces. Does anyone know who this is? Yeah. Who is it? Yeah, Atal Adnan. And she was a Lebanese-American poet, essayist, and artist. Beautiful pieces that they just make an appearance in this poem. I just really wanted to show you them. Friendship, 1963. I came to this city so I could see gold. When I arrived, though, the leaves were gold too, and I became confused. I called the front desk 4 times, and Angel answered each time. By the 3rd call, he ended with, "Talk soon." In the morning, a different man answered, and I burst into tears. On 53rd Street, small children kept on running into me. A father yelled so loudly at the boy on the scooter that I thought he knew I was carrying death on my back. By the time I arrived at the museum, there was a long line. The bald man in front of me kept turning around to look at me. I could tell by his forehead that he could hurt me. When I finally found the room, I was the only one in there. Everyone else was below me in the Picasso room. While I stared at the gold rectangles, 2 attendants talked about whether to work overtime and get paid time and a half. I wanted to tell them that there's no such thing as time, just time and a half. Sometime in the night, Ital Adnan had died. I had just seen her paintings the day before. The crowds were large, and I wondered whether our looking had accelerated her death. When I took a photo of Agnes's piece, I saw my dark reflection on the gold. I started counting the grids, but the bald man came up next to me. Suddenly, there were two dark shadows on the gold. I asked him to step away, but when he said, "No," it was Agnes's voice. Oh, has anyone seen this one before? Does anyone know who made this? No? Klimt. Gustav Klimt. These are just two new poems, newish poems, and actually not that new anymore. And it's in a manuscript called Tree of Knowledge. I saw this by accident. I think I was wandering around at the museum at Harvard and just ran into it. And I think it's just so beautiful. I immediately stopped and got a little too close, but there was no one monitoring me, luckily. It's called Pear Tree. This squirrel has a dark patch on its face. I doubt that it is the same squirrel from yesterday. Maybe we're not meant to be anything but many people at once, ourselves at odds with our other selves. On the best day, their sullen backs to each other. I face the other living eucalyptus in the backyard, aware of my back to the missing tree. I have never once written something slowly due to a fear of being corrected by my own thinking. I know my overwriting has something to do with the tree and its absence, a new desire to grow light. What am I if I no longer need my dead parents? I have lived 1,000 lives since then, exterminated 2,000 stones. I now have love all to myself. When you have love all to yourself, you have so much of it that it's no longer just a premonition of itself. It starts to mingle, like Klimt, who gave the pear tree to his mistress Amelie Flogue, but continued to visit the painting, filling in all the bare spots, so that what remained was love on top of love, and more pears, all the sunlit pears. Anyone know who this is? I'm so annoying, aren't I? I'm sorry. I just get so excited about this one. It's so big, and I'm so glad you can see it. It's by an artist named Joan Mitchell, who just had like a show that was just traveling around the country. And this poem is called Ode to Joy, and this is called Ode to Joy. And it's a painting that's in conversation with Frank O'Hara's poem of the same title, because she was friends with all the poets, and I love that time period with when the poets were friends with the painters kind of thing. I was also bird watching with a friend super early in the morning in Denver, and watching these cormorants go back and forth with fishes in their mouths. And this is called Ode to Joy. Thank you so much for listening. Where double-breasted cormorants fly back and forth on a highway of lack and joy. Mouths empty one way, full of dying fish on the way back. The fish is grief, but the bird flying back to the tree is joy, meaning grief is inside the mouth of joy. Lately, all I can look at is the dark green covering the gold. Maybe joy and grief are the same electric wire. We watched the cormorants go back and forth all morning. In that moment, my mouth tasted like dead fish. I thought of how my father always gave the fish eyeball to an honored guest, the long dinners, large round tables where the fish's eye would stare, glassy and open, of how life is a long series of being looked at and looking. I always thought that being looked at was the goal. We talked about the cormorants and the fish, then the sun came up. The bird froze in the middle of the sky. Nothing moved but the fish's eye in the bird's mouth. Some days gold is inside green. Other days green is inside gold. There must be a reason why we can see all of it at once. Thank you. Stay up here? Oh, yeah, stay up here, of course. Right, I'm monitoring my own self, Q&A wise. Yes, okay. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Do we have microphones? Yeah. Oh, do you want me to run it around? I can run it around. I'm fine running it around. Okay.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
I just wanted to know, how did you find some of these paintings? Like, what made you choose these out of others?
Yeah, I mean, I always think, I kind of poke fun at the Picasso room in the poem because I feel like, for me at least, art is so much about what resonates with you, as is poetry and all art and music. And so I think I just resonated with these pieces. And like if I always use that word residue, like I used today in class, like I feel like anything with a residue is good. So if you meet somebody and they sort of they leave their residue on you, I feel like that's something to think about. And same thing with art or poetry or anything that you read or listen to. If it's making something that's memorable is important. So for me, it was just, I look at something and then it would just stay with me. And I think that's how I chose the pieces to write about.
Hi, thank you so much for this reading. It was just, the poems were super beautiful. It was really, really interesting to hear a little bit about your process. I have a comment and a question.
Sure.
My comment is just that with the Klimt tree, I just really appreciated you showing that my mom has a print of a Klimt apple tree painting on her wall. If you haven't seen it, I recommend checking it out. It's a great tree.
It's pretty.
And my question is, I was really interested in how you're talking about Agnes Martin and Ethel Adnan and their work. And I think of both of those two women as really important queer artists. And so I was wondering if you see your poems kind of like responding to that kind of kind of acting in a sort of lineage of a kind of like queer sensibility or queer aesthetic. Thank you so much.
Definitely. I mean, I think both were also. I mean, they both were like working across genres. They were many people at once. They, in my opinion, were active outsiders. Probably outsiders in their queerness, but also outsiders in their, art practice and writing practice. And so maybe there's just a lot that I connected to, and just I feel like both are just really interesting, intellectually minded women with a lot of soul, and we're exploring those larger, bigger questions that I'm always thinking about. So yeah, I feel like maybe I just connect with them, kind of thing.
What's the process of you like seeing a piece of art, let's say in a museum, to, coming to the realization that you want to write something about it? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I'm kind of sometimes I say I'm really busy, and then I think about how much time I actually sit around and do nothing. And I think the idea of busyness has become kind of this fake speech that I give. So I feel like it's the thing that gnaws at you, the thing that, like that impulse to write when you're not you don't have to write. And so, yeah, I think I wait until the very last second possible, and I even overweight. And, like Louise Glick was known for writing in these short bursts. And so her books have a sort of consistency about them because she wrote them over like a 2 or 3 month period. I feel like I'm not Louise Glick because she's singular and brilliant, but I understand that writing process because I try and wait as long as possible until like I'm dying to get back to sitting down and writing. Like I won't allow myself to until I feel this extreme urge and hunger and itching and scratching that I really want to sit down. But I don't know when I want to write, and I have no idea, but there's something that's gnawing at me. So I think I have even though I don't seem patient, I'm extremely patient with that process. So it's just however long it takes for me to feel that feeling.
Thanks, Victoria. So, as I was reading the book and then again listening to you read from it today, I had the idea, but it may not be true. So tell me if it's a kind of odd fantasy that in writing with Agnes Martin in the way that you were, you must have felt like you were somehow in her company, like there was something.
Yeah.
Even though, you were alone, presumably, and in some other sense, that there was something about it that felt like, I don't know, if friendship is the right word or some kind of company. And I guess I just wonder what that aspect of the writing felt like for you and how you would compare it to the kind of company you have when you sit down with a person that you're talking with or eating with or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation because I think grief can be exceptionally lonely. And, my parents were ill for so long and nobody wants to talk to you about that. And if they do, it might not be as long as you might want to talk to them about it. And so I was performing a lot of cheerfulness and happiness all the time. And so it felt very lonely. And I think part of the pleasure and joy of writing that book was that correspondence with another being that I kind of felt connected with and simpatico. It's also the best of both worlds, and maybe there's some ethical issues there. It's like, you're talking to someone, but they can't really talk back with you, and you argue with them, but they can't respond. And maybe that's the gift of corresponding with someone who you actually don't know and is no longer alive. But it felt so comforting, and when I wasn't writing or reading or learning about her, I felt like I was missing something. And so I wanted to go back and continue that conversation. And I waited. I don't know if anyone's seen her. There are several videos, but there's one where, it shows her opening and she's painting and talking while she's painting. I waited until I was done with the book to watch anything because I wanted to leave my own imagination open and have my own ideas of what she was like, what she sounded like, her body movements were like. And so when I finally watched that, I just remember sobbing because I just had such an intense private and personal correspondence with her for so long. So it was very, very pleasurable. Yeah, thank you for that question. I don't know if I answered the whole thing. Yeah.
Hi. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. Currently in my class, we're reading Dear Memory. I was just wondering if you could speak about your process of writing the poems. Maybe how you choose who to write to, and maybe just the flow of your poems too.
Yeah. So that book is called Dear Memory: Writings on what is it? Letters on writing, silence, and grief. And I didn't read anything from it because it would make me go over the time. But it's an epistolary book, which means they're all in letters. And I tell the story sometimes that people have a lot of stuff, and my mother had so much stuff. And after she died, she was a bit of a hoarder. I found a big storage facility with all her more stuff, if that's even possible. And I had given her, I like to give her things. She collected these miniature teapots. And the thing that always strikes me is if you give like, don't give people too much stuff, because when they die, like, you get it all back, essentially. So I was like, all these teapots that I bought with her for like over decades, like suddenly I had them all again. And then they were all in like a whole bunch more were in a storage facility. But all these papers I found, and like I suddenly knew my grandfather's name, my grandmother's name. I knew what birth dates, like things had been changed, dates had been changed. Like I recently learned my grandfather, my dad's side, was illiterate and owned a small bicycle repair business during the Japanese occupation in Taiwan. Like why would you know it? Like why? There's so many little things. But I was super excited until I realized that it doesn't matter anymore, because all of that only mattered if I had someone to talk to about it. And so I had more questions, and then I started writing the first letter, Dear Mother, and then like typical Victoria Chang fashion, I become obsessed, and then wrote Dear, I just wrote a letter to everybody. And I grew up in Michigan, where there weren't a lot of people that looked like me, or it was very not diverse. And so I had a rough time growing up in that state. And so I wrote, to people that were cruel to me growing up. I wrote to beloved high school teachers who, made me memorize Emily Dickinson, and we read Shakespeare, and it was amazing. I had such a great high school public education in Michigan. So I just like, once you get going on something, I just feel like I couldn't stop because I'm obsessive. So it was sort of like, once I opened that kind of can of worms, it's just like, it just all flowed out kind of thing.
We have time for maybe like one or two more questions.
Hi. Again, like everyone's saying, thank you for doing this and being here. And I've been staring at this painting for a long time, and I have a question for you based on a philosophy class that I'm taking. And something we've been talking about, it's like an aesthetics class, and something we've been talking about is how art inspires emotion, and whether that's through form and shape, or if that's through an emotion being conveyed by the artist speaking to you. And in the pieces that you've shown, I've seen a lot of very complex forms and shapes, and especially this image of the gold and the green has really been standing out to me in that combination of colors. And I was wondering, when you look at a piece of artwork, is it the combination of form and shape that you're looking at, and the lines and the colors, and you're finding emotion in that? Or when you're looking at a piece of artwork, are you seeing those artists' emotions being reflected onto you, and you can resonate with them in relationship to your experiences, or what you're thinking the artist is trying to convey? I'm just genuinely interested.
All of the above. That's a great question. And, like I tend to like work that I feel is trying to get at something else. So maybe, like I said today, like maybe like I'm writing and I'm like, it's so weird because I'm using all this language, but I'm really trying to write silence, for example, like, these bigger kind of why are we here questions. And I think I also like Mark Rothko, and not all of the pieces, but some of them I've seen, and it's just your throat. What's that saying? Your throat, you get a lump in your throat, but it kind of, what is that saying where the throat falls down to your stomach? I don't know.
Like your stomach dropping? Or
Stomach dropping? Yeah. So
heart in your throat.
Heart in your throat. There you go. Right. There's a lot of things related to the throat. Yeah, I grew up, like, I didn't learn these things. My parents spoke Chinese at home. But so something like that feeling where you feel like it's that the emotions are so intense. And maybe, I always used to ask this question to my poetry teachers, like, do you have to suffer to write great poems? Great question. I'm sure some of you have asked that same question. But my teachers would always say, no, you don't have to suffer. Or suffering, it could be existential suffering. And I don't know, the older I get, the more I think, suffering, like real suffering, like Rothko, can lead to this kind of work that just moves you to this otherworldly space. So I think those are the kinds of things that I'm attracted to at sort of this age. And I can't say, I would necessarily say I've always been attracted to that kind of work. So it changes over time too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, you've never
We got time for one more question, if everybody's got one. All right, well, the round of applause, please, for
Thank you. Thank you.